So before we go and start the admission process, I thought it might be a little bit beneficial if we just really briefly go over the relationship between school and student. Schools do have certain responsibilities that they have to uphold to their students. You guys do have certain rights when entering, as well as applying. When applying, as well as enrolling and attending college. So I made like the very most basic of this so that you guys just get a gist of what you have and what you're covered under legally. So there are three basic constraints for universities that they have to adhere to. The selection process cannot be arbitrary and it has to be consistent. The institution must adhere to its published admission standards that it has set and must honor its admissions decisions. And the institution cannot have admissions policies that unjustifiably discriminate against race, sex, disability, age, residence, or citizenship. So much like in the workforce, universities are not able to unjustifiably discriminate. There are a couple different instances where if it's a private school and they only want an all-female campus or something like that, that is considered a justifiable discrimination. Additionally, since it's a private school, it doesn't really run the same way as the public universities do. So, arbitrariness. Essentially, the universities have to set up requirements and guidelines for admissions that make sense. They're not allowed to be able to deny you off of random, like hair color or perhaps height or any of those previous listed qualities, race, religion, sex, stuff like that. Their requirements must pertain directly with being a student. So most of them go off of your high school GPA as well as your ACT or SAT score. These are put together to form what's called a PGI calculator. And that calculator is what's used to decide whether or not you're admitted, and in most cases, what level of scholarship you will obtain as a student if you get one at all. So essentially, the requirements have to be pertinent to how well you will perform at the school. These are primarily academic. In some instances, they do require interviews as well. But for the most part, since we're only focused on the Utah public school system, most of it's going to be based off of your high school GPA and your SAT or ACT score. Adherence. Once colleges accept you, they are not able to deny you, or you are not able to get denied as long as you didn't do anything wrong. So if you apply for a university, the university accepts you, and then through no fault of your own, the university rejects that acceptance or takes it back, you would be able to file for some kind of compensation for it. There have been instances where students have been accepted, or there's been some kind of written agreement or something like that, and then due to funding or there's some politics involved, students aren't allowed to attend. They're not fully accepted. In these cases, students have sought some kind of compensation, and there have even been some cases where the university has had to push through and then still provide programs for students since the college had promised a level of instruction to the kids. So when you apply for universities, you do kind of enter into a contractual agreement. And the university side, a large part of it is offering an education. So when they offer that and then are willing to accept you and then later go back and reject it, they tend to face some kind of legal consequence there. The final thing is going to be discrimination. So we had previously talked about several different aspects. Schools are not able to justify things, are not able to unjustifiably discriminate. So race, sex, disability, age, residence, citizenship, stuff like that. Those tend to be the most well-known cases for discrimination. But for the most part, Students have a measure of protection through this. It's the same thing as entering into a workforce where you are not allowed to be unjustifiably discriminated against. If you're pregnant or have a medical issue or something like that, that's not considered a justifiable reason to be able to get turned away from a university. You would still be entitled and protected under the law to receive the same level of education as everybody else. Additionally, students who, I should briefly mention, most students are protected under the ADA. So if you do have a disability or something like that and are protected under the ADA, the school also is required to make reasonable accommodations for students who have disabilities. You'll notice this is most frequently handicap parking spots, ramps to make sure that everything is accessible to students who are in wheelchairs. Students are allowed to bring service animals to classes, things of that nature. So a university is required to, as long as it doesn't change the construct of a classroom, they're required to make some kind of accommodation for students. So now that we have that out of the way, how do you apply? For the most part, this is going to be on the website. It's a pretty easy process. Universities want to be able to streamline this because it means you guys are going and applying to their school, which is exactly what they want. If you have questions on it, your high school counselor and the university itself will be more than happy to help assist you with it. So you will need to know your ACT or SAT score. You'll also need to be able to obtain your transcript. These two things are usually put together to make the PGI index, which is generally used for scholarships when you apply. This is a list of all of the Utah system of higher education. You'll notice another really common one is BYU. That one is not listed in the Utah system of higher education because it is a private school. The application process doesn't have to follow the same guidelines as the public universities, though, again, for simplicity and streamlining the process, a lot of universities set it up very similarly. So the biggest thing that you're going to want to make sure that you do is hit the priority deadlines. A lot of universities have priority deadlines that are the cutoff for things like you get certain housing perks, or you get full ride scholarships, or you have a higher chance, or you get early enrollment or something like that for your classes. So if at all possible, you should be signing up for your classes and enrolling hopefully by the middle of November for classes, which means that you need to have finished your application at the very latest by November 1st. And that's going to cover most of the priority deadlines. Again, universities run a little bit differently throughout the state, and so some of them might have earlier or later deadlines than that. But you'll be able to easily find that information on their website and be able to see what you need. So once you send in your application, it'll take a little while, but then they will notify you that you've gotten accepted. A lot of them do this through email. I think generally they also send a paper announcement as well through the mail. So once you do get accepted, you want to make sure that you go online and accept your award. So it's essentially you going, hey, I am interested in being able to apply for this school. The school will contact you saying whether or not you are able to get to pursue an education there, whether or not you've been accepted, and then after that, you essentially have to accept their acceptance. So if you have scholarships through them, you'll want to make sure that you accept those because they are not automatically put onto your account. If you have financial aid, you want to go make sure that you accept that offering because it will not automatically be put onto your account. So you need to make sure that you go on and acknowledge the fact that you've received your application with most universities. Again, each one is different, but in the letters that they have and that they'll send you, the contact that you'll get, they'll make sure to specify stuff like this. So your biggest job is making sure that you read through all of the notifications that you get from them. If you do have questions, you can talk to your high school counselor and they'll have plenty of resources to help you. But again, for the most part, a lot of the information that you're going to need is going to be on the website of the university. You just want to make sure that you're starting soon enough that you can get everything finalized so that you're not trying to crunch right before. I generally recommend working on it the very end of junior year, looking at different universities, and then perhaps that summer before senior year, going on a couple of different trips, touring campuses, see which ones you're interested in, and then finishing the application process the very, very first of your senior year. You want to make sure that you have everything finalized, again, by the very latest November 1st. I would recommend around September, maybe the end of September, the beginning of October, just to give you a little bit of wiggle room with that.